So the Fire Maple Petrel 600 milliliter pot has become exceptionally popular with a lot of people, and for good reason. Compact, lightweight, and because of the heat exchanger and the ability to set it down on top of most gas canister stoves with the 3 pot supports, exceptionally efficient. There's only one downside to this little pot. Exactly that. 600 milliliters, not a lot of capacity. And it's just over 2 cups of water, plenty for most freeze-dried meal, plenty for a cup of coffee. But if you're looking to do more with a pot, this is going to be a little small for you. So a lot of people will want to look for something else, something a little larger. Where Fire Maple heard people's concerns and came out with this pot. This is the Fire Maple Petrel 750 milliliter pot. It also has a few other improvements as well. If you're interested, keep watching. Before we get started, I do want to thank Fire Maple for sending out the new version of the Petrel pot, and I just want to point out this one is referred to as the G2, whereas the original, the 600 milliliter version, is referred to as the G3. Now, I find that a bit confusing. You would think it'd be just the opposite, right? So the way I like to refer to them as the smaller one as the 600 mil version, and the larger is the 750 mil version. I think that makes it much simpler. Okay, in addition, one more thing. If you hang around to the end, I'm going to show you a small hack that I came up with for the original 600 milliliter version of the Petrel that I think you might be interested in. All right, so let's get started. So in addition to the volume difference between the two pots, there are a few other subtle differences, improvements, I'm going to say, that make this worth looking at. So first thing I want to point out is the size difference, and showing you them side by side. So you can see they are the same height. It's the diameter of the larger one that has increased. All right, now, one of the first improvements that Fire Maple made for this pot, and I guess it just went with the design or the increase in volume, is the fact that now you can put in a 8-ounce gas canister inside. The smaller of the two will hold a 4-ounce gas canister and still have room for a small gas canister stove, one that would sit on top of the canister. Now, the new one has room for the larger 8-ounce, and yes, I do have it wrapped in a small paper towel just to keep it from rattling around inside of the pot, because there is just that much clearance, not a whole lot. All right, another change between the two is you can see on the sides of the older version, the 600 mil, that there are graduation marks up to the max fill line, which is 600 milliliters. And the other thing I can point out there is that that's a good functional capacity. You can actually put 600 mils of water, just over 2 cups, in this and have room for it to boil. You can go further to the top and get a little bit more volume in it, but you wouldn't want to do that because chances of it boiling over greatly increase, of course. On the new version, there is only the one graduated mark, and that's at the max fill line of 750 milliliters. I think Fire Maple missed an opportunity to imprint the rest on the sides like they did with the older version. I'm just going to suggest maybe they might want to consider doing that. You can easily estimate it, but if you can see 250 mils, 500 mils, and 750 mils, I think that would be much appreciated by a lot of the users out there. Now, the next change is very subtle, but it will be a welcome improvement by many people as well. If there was another complaint that people made about the smaller, the 600 milliliter version is that during use, while it's on top of a stove and the water's coming to a boil, it can sometimes be hard to get the lid off, and I can verify that. Doesn't always happen for me, but occasionally I'll find it creates a vapor lock for the lack of a better explanation, and it wants to stay on top, kind of seals itself almost. Now, it's not sealing because it's loose enough. When you take it off the heat, the vapor lock goes away, you can take the lid off, but that's just a small annoyance, nothing that's a deal breaker, but a lot of people did make a note of that. Well, they did 2 things for the new version. Fire Maple put a formed spout on the side of the pot, and that does 2 things. One, it makes it much easier to pour from, so you can get a steady stream of water instead of flowing out over the side. And the other thing is it totally prevents that vapor lock from happening because there's a gap there now and it won't seal shut. Good on you, Fire Maple, for coming up with that solution. Now, the last thing I want to say about the new version of the pot compared to the old version of the pot is some people will say, It's not a lot of a difference. It's not a great deal of a volume difference. You know, it's still only, what, an additional 150 milliliters, which is just over half a cup. What about something bigger? Can Fire Maple come out with even a bigger pot that has these features on it? Well, they have and they haven't. It's called the XK6, I think it is. It's a full 1 liter pot. It's one that's been in their lineup for the longest period of time. It looks a lot like these pots. It has a heat exchanger on the bottom. It doesn't have the Tritan lid, but it does have a plastic lid on top. The handles fold out from the side rather than over the top, but it looks almost identical. Now, the only thing it doesn't have is the slots on the bottom so that we can set down over any 3-pronged gas canister stove. Well, I have another video where I talked about how I modified that larger pot so it can be used just like either of these two pots. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one if you want. It makes it a good option if you're looking for something a little larger that still has all the features that these two pots have. All right, hang around for a moment. I have a hack for the smaller the pot I think you'll appreciate. As I mentioned, I do have a hack, and it's related to making coffee in the smaller of the two pots, the 600 milliliter version of the Petrel. And I got this from another video that I made, and I just thought, I wonder if it would work with this, and that is using my Stanley 2-cup Adventure cook set as a French press. Now, I know there's a newer version. We can't get those in Canada yet, but using the older version, the one that tapers at the bottom. And I was able to turn it into a French press because the standard 6-cup French press piston and screen work perfectly in it. Well, guess what? They work perfectly in this one as well, and I'll demonstrate that. I actually brought out the one that I used with the Stanley with me, and again, I picked this up at a thrift store, and I got it for very inexpensive. And after, you know, the glass carafe that it came with, well, that's gone, but I kept this so that I could make coffee while I'm out here in the woods, using the French press method, of course. So the other thing that I noted is that fingers are cold. Come on, you can do this, Mark. Cold fingers out here. So inside, I mentioned you can put the 4-ounce gas canister stove, if that's what you want to carry, and then you can still put in a small gas canister stove or a 4-ounce gas canister plus a gas canister stove inside. But like the Stanley 2-cup Adventure cook set, you can put their cups down inside. The two of them will fit, and you can still get a gas canister. You can't get the gas canister, but you can get the stove and the 2 cups inside. So it kind of turns this into a lightweight, more efficient version of the Stanley 2-cup Adventure set, if that's something you're interested in. Now, let me just point this out. So there's the stove. If I was to put this onto a boil, drop my coffee into it, take it off of the heat, let it steep for a while, I can then take my plunger and it fits perfectly down inside so that I can use it as a French press. Small hack, but it's something I've learned. I thought I might as well pass on to you. All right, let's wrap this video up. All right, I'm going to close this video up with 1 or 2 more comments. First off, the thing I haven't mentioned so far is the technical specifications for this pot. I gave you the functional capacity of 750 milliliters, but as far as diameter, height, and weight, I'll put all that in the video description, as well as the links to where you can take another look at it. All right, you know, either one of these pots are great to have. The small one will still be favored by a lot of people who don't need the extra capacity, but for those of you who are looking for the extra capacity and still have the key feature on the bottom being the heat exchanger and the slots, now there is an option available to you. And as I mentioned, if you want to make it a version of it out of the larger pot, by the way, I should mention this is not Fire Maple's approved hack. It's something I did myself. If you do it, then you take the risk, or at least you risk validating the warranty on that larger pot if you have it. Okay, if you have any comments or questions, put those in the comments section below. But until next time, get out and explore and take that path less traveled, because it will make all the difference. Bye for now.